get towards Christmas time, I want us not to forget about what Jesus did for us. And so this morning I want to read 1 Corinthians chapter 1. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verses 18 through 24. And then we'll pray together. And then we'll look at God's word together this morning. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, beginning with verse 18. So Paul's writing to this church in Corinth, and he's writing to the Corinthians. And he's talking to them about this misconception that they have about why Jesus died on the cross. And I think we have to have a clear understanding about the cross, because it's really important for us to understand the cross and why Jesus died on the cross for us. So 1 Corinthians chapter 1, we're going to read it out loud together, verses 18 through 24. Okay? Let's begin. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. For the word of the cross is folly to those who are perishing, but to those who are being saved, it is the power of God. For it is written, I will destroy the wisdom of the wise, and the discernment of the discerning I will thwart. Where is the one who is wise? Where is the scribe? Where is the debater of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world did not know God through wisdom, it pleased God through the folly of what we preach to save those who believe. For Jews demand signs and Greeks seek wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and folly to Gentiles. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. Amen. Let's pray together. Father, I thank you again so much for revealing yourself by sending your Son, Jesus Christ, into this world. And as we get close to Christmas, we know that's the time we're celebrating. Maybe it became commercialized, but we celebrate the birth of Jesus. And I pray that we would really reflect upon that. And today we want to not only talk about the birth of Jesus, but how he died, how his life ended on the cross. And Lord, may that be something that we understand, the message of the cross, that maybe the world doesn't understand. And so I pray that you would impress that upon us this morning once again. We pray all these things in Jesus' name. So this past week, Tuesday at 3 a.m., Catherine and Ellie and I, we drove up to visit my mom in Northern California in San Jose actually. And so it's kind of a busy week. We had our Thanksgiving blowout Sunday, potluck last Sunday. For those of you who missed it, it was good. Next year, make sure you hang out. And then on Monday, we went a mile from our house to my sister-in-law of the girls' family, and we kind of hung out, and we had Thanksgiving early lunch with them. And then the girls went out. They watched movies, they went shopping, whatnot, that typical stuff. And then Tuesday morning, we drove up. And Tuesday evening, I had planned to have some dinner with some of my high school friends. And so we kind of none of them are Christian, and we met. And we were at this kind of small, like Japantown area in San Jose. And it's not like anything bigger, but it was interesting because they already had kind of the Christmas decorations up. So even before Thanksgiving is done, it's already started. You guys maybe you are seeing it. I don't see it in too many places, but they already had it all up. And, I was thinking about that as I was kind of waiting for some of my friends to show up. And they showed up. We kind of went in and we sat down and we just kind of just caught up. And we were talking about friends and who's where and doing what. We were talking about different things and nothing major. But as I was kind of looking at some of the decorations and people all getting ready for Christmas, we ended up talking about, so what are you doing for Thanksgiving? And what are you doing for Christmas? And it's the same stories. We're getting together with family. We're having turkey. We're having a big meal. And at Christmas, we're saving our money to buy the gifts that our kids want. And kids are older now, so they want bigger gifts. Or some of them were talking about how their kids are older now, college, and some of them are out of college, and how they're now giving big gifts to their parents. I'm like, oh, my girls aren't there yet. Don't worry, you don't have to give me big gifts. I'm not. But if you think about it, I think oftentimes in the holidays, especially this part of the year, we get caught up in the events, we get caught up in the food and the eating, the giving and gifting and all this stuff. And the crazy Black Friday. I am so glad. I just have no desire whatsoever to go out to those things. And when you think about it, a lot of things that should have a deeper meaning, and it's not necessarily bad, getting together with family and giving gifts and just enjoying time together, that's all good stuff. But we need to remember, especially as Christians, the message of Christmas, the message of Thanksgiving, the whole perspective that we have to have as Christians. Don't get me wrong, especially the youth, but if I were ever, and I don't have any, and I don't anticipate it, to get a tattoo, maybe, I don't know, maybe when I retire after I'm done with ministry, it would only be on a cross. And the reason is, it's because, to me, every once in a while when I see a cross, it reminds me of my Christianity. And here in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, Paul goes back to the very beginning of Christianity and why we have cross as the symbol of Christianity. And he explains deeply to the Corinthian people who heard about Jesus, heard about this guy who was quote-unquote a revolutionary, who was among the Jews, rising up and had this great following and could have been a threat to the Roman Empire, who dies on the cross. And literally, for a lot of people in that day, they thought, well, he had this humble beginning as a carpenter's son, and he rose up, and thousands, tens of thousands of people were ready to follow after him, and then it all crashes, and he's killed and crucified and dies. Horrible death, the worst death at the time, on the cross. And yet the Christians took that. All the early church took that. The apostles took that. Paul took that and said, this cross, if you understand, explains Christianity. It explains who God is. It explains why Jesus was born and explains what he did. And you see, when you look at this passage, it says something very interesting. It says, the word of the cross, or in another translation, the message of the cross, or the meaning of the cross is folly. And if you look at the Greek, and if you look at the original word Greek for folly, it's actually the root word for moron or moronic. Okay? That's the root word. It's moronic. It's idiotic. It makes no sense. No sane, intelligent person would think of salvation or founding a religion based upon the cross, based upon death on a cross. How could God, if Jesus Christ, who he claimed to be, if he was God, allow himself to die on the cross? It doesn't make any sense. It's like someone coming to save us in this world. It's like a great religious leader. It's like the prophet coming and being put into jail and rotting in jail for the rest of his life, or being executed in some way, shape, or form at a young age. It doesn't make any sense. And so, for the world, for everybody at that time, when they heard this story about Jesus, they said, well, it started out great, and it had this great climax, but then it ended like this. That's nothing. There's nothing to the story. And yet today, right now, that cross is the foundation. It is an essential foundation to what we believe. And so what is this message of the cross? I just want to give you a few things that I want you to have just an insight with. It's very simple. I'm not going to go super deep, but I want you to understand this, because when you read this passage, Paul is trying to explain to the Corinthians, and I want us to understand this, that when you look at a cross, you should have a few understandings that come out from it. See, as Christians, when we look at the cross, the first thing that you have to understand about it is this. The cross has this message that this world is broken. It's messed up. Whenever I look at the cross, that's what I'm reminded of. When I was meeting with my friends that are, they're not Christians, but they're really good people. They have very strong morals. They've raised their children. They've had some phenomenal kids. I always enjoy meeting their kids and stuff like that. A lot of them are older than my kids, and they're in college and whatnot. But whenever I meet them, I go, wow, man, they're not like maybe the top students, but they're, passionate about what they're doing and their interests, and they have a goal, and they have all these things, and they're just well-mannered. Just well-mannered. And it's amazing to me because when I see my kids with my friends and other adults, they're super well-mannered. They're really impolite to me, but when they're with people they don't know very well, they're all yes, hi, and they're very well-mannered. So, I see that and I'm like, you have a great family, and all the stuff everything in the world that you can want. They have good careers. A lot of them are in Silicon Valley. They have good jobs. They're doing decent. They may not be the wealthiest, but they're not wanting for anything. And so in many ways, they have what the world is saying that you should have at that age when you're in your 50s. And yet, when I think about it, the cross reminds me, with all our comforts, with all our good families, with all our kids not having gone astray and done horrible, long, weird things, or all of those things that any parent or any person would desire, I'm reminded by the cross that this world is broken. That even though my friends, when I talk with them, I just, we just interact and we have a good time talking, my heart breaks for them in the sense that they do not have an answer for the problems in their life. They may be okay right now, but what are they going to do at the end of their life? What are they going to do when illness comes? It was kind of funny because last Saturday here at church for the Korean congregation and for the old folks, but I went too, but they had this seminar. And so a couple of folks that are specialists in Social Security and health insurance for retirees came in and gave a seminar. And so I was sitting there, it was all in Korean, and I didn't understand everything, but they're all here, from the late 40s all the way to people who are retired in their 70s and 80s, right now. Some of your parents were there, and they're writing down notes about, how do I, if I need to be in a convalescent home or one of those health managed care homes in the long run, how do I afford it? How do I take care? And the crazy thing is, I'm in that category now. I'm having to think about some of those things, right? Because ultimately, that's the nature of this world. It is broken. There's disease. There's death. There's financial issues. There's some things that come that is inevitable. And for me, I've talked about this before, but personally I'm touched by it because I have family members, but the worst thing that I've always seen are people who end up with dementia and Alzheimer for 10, 15, 20 years, and their spouse is caring for them. And up to then, maybe all their life is going well financially with their kids, everything. And all of a sudden, they're caring for someone that is no longer in their right mind. I just see the devastation and difficulty. And so when I look at the cross, what I see is this world that's broken, that there's nothing that we can do to fix it. And that's why Paul says, what? Who's wise? Where's the wise one? Where's the scribe? Where's the debater of this age? You can subscribe and read the works or follow every guru, every self-help guy, every person who's successful. Say, here's how you become healthy. Here's how you become wealthy. Here's how you become successful. Here's how you have good relationships. And you can subscribe to all of those people and learn all that human wisdom and knowledge. And ultimately, it all falls short. And that's what the cross reminds me of. The cross reminds me of that. Why? Because the cross is reminding us that there's sin, that there's brokenness. When I look at a jail, when I look at a prison, when I hear about criminals, I'm reminded about the brokenness of this world, that it is not a utopia. With all of our knowledge, with all of our wealth, with all of our advances, there are people still starving. There are people still dying of very curable diseases. There's war breaking out all over the place. Small skirmishes and larger skirmishes for very silly political reasons. There's all kinds of racism and prejudice and hatred and ignorance and all these things in this world that doesn't seem necessarily to be getting better, but it's just as bad, if not worse. And all of humanity's accumulated knowledge, wisdom, enlightenment is not able to solve these problems. And so the cross reminds me of not only sin, but of the world and how it has to deal with it, with punishment, with jail, with prison, with locking people up, because we have no other solution. We just need to isolate the bad, the evil, and that's all we can do. We can quarantine it, but we can't kill it. That's the first thing that the cross reminds me. But the second thing that the cross reminds me of, here we use the word folly or foolishness or moronic. The second thing that the cross reminds me of is the word grace or surprise, strange, unreasonable. I know it's weird to put grace and unreasonable. It's weird to put God's love and folly or moronic together, but it is. See, God's love, God's grace, by any measure of the world, is idiotic, is unreasonable, is foolish. It's like loving someone who takes you for granted. It's like pouring out your resources and giving to someone who keeps wasting and throwing things away, who never reciprocates and who never changes. And so here where it says that the message of the cross is folly, is that Jesus Christ, I believe this absolutely. Other people who are in theology, there's different things in Christianity, but I think that when Jesus died on the cross, he died for every single human being that will ever live and has ever lived and is living now, for all humanity. My mom and I get into some interesting conversations when we're together, when the kids are over. My mom and I are talking, and I don't know, I mean, she asks questions that she's been in the church all her life, and she's very devout, and she has all these things, but there's little questions that she asks that I realize that as you get older sometimes, you don't talk to she goes to a large church, so she doesn't talk to her senior pastor or the pastors very much. So when I'm there, I'm first off, I'm her tech guy. I have to make sure our computer's running, and her printer's running, and our iPad's running, and her phone's running. And anything else that's not running, I got to make sure it's running. And so I do all of that. That usually takes about half a day to diagnose. And then she got a new TV. My sister brought her, and I brought it in, and I set it up. And it took an hour to teach her how to use the remote control. And it was really hard because I was getting frustrated. I was trying to really be patient. But then later on, so we sat down over coffee, we were chatting. And so she had to start asking me these, not like these theological questions, but just talking about stuff. And one of the things that we ended up talking about, I don't know how we got into this area and this category, is we start talking about how in this world, even Christians now, in her mindset, we're doing all these things that seem like not a reflection of their Christianity. And I was so like, what? Well, she said, well, there's this young lady at the church who had blonde hair, and she goes to all Korean church, right? And everybody's good, but she's all blonde hair. And all of her friends in her age category, the old retirees in their 80s and whatnot, were like talking about it. Nobody said anything because they're smart enough not to say anything because that's the young people for you now, right? And then the horror of horrors, it was one of the associate pastor's daughters, right? So it was like another, and then she was like saying, make sure your kids don't do that to you. And I'm like, so we're talking, and so I wanted to kind of debrief that. I said, Mom, that's your visceral reaction. Why is that? Is that really a Christian center or something from the Bible? And she goes, well, our external things. And then here's the one thing that I know, because I have all the photos from her when she was younger, like when she was dating my dad and before she got married, when she was graduating from college, and we had all these black and white photos. And so I brought out my trump card. I said, Grandma, not kids' grandma. I said, Mom, do you remember before you married Dad when you were dating? And do you remember some of the photos? Yeah. And I was like, you guys were all so nicely dressed up. Back then, in that 60s, they had the 50s and 60s, they had all the guys, they wore just suits was their everyday wear. Like from America, not just all nicely tailored suits and shiny shoes, and all the women had dresses and just all nicely coiffed hair. It was just really nice photos, and they all she had a parasol and all that stuff. Except in one of the photos, well, several of the photos, she had mini skirts, like really mini skirts, really, really mini skirts back then, right? And so I said, Mom, do you remember back then when you were dating Dad? The mini skirts you had? What did Grandma say? My grandma said. And she goes, and she kind of smiled because she knew I had this. She's like, she didn't like it. I said, why? So when you went to church, you were going to church at the time, did the other lady, or were you the only rebellious one? She was like, no, the other girls my age all wore miniskirts at church. And did the older folks do you know that they were talking about it in the back? She goes, yeah. So did you guys stop wearing them? She said, no. So she knew what I was getting at. Sometimes we get so stuck on the rules, what's appropriate, what other people think, that we forget about this crazy, for lack of a better word, foolish love of God that looks beyond all those external. I want to make sure one thing clear. The rules and the laws that God gives to us are very important, but they're not the central thing. Why does God give us rules and laws? For our sake. Why do we have rules for our children when they're little? Don't turn on the stove. Don't run out in the street. Why do we have these rules? They may or may not listen to us, but why do we have these rules? Because they're immature, they don't have enough experience, they don't have enough judgment, and we give them rules that we enforce for their sake to keep them safe. Not just to say, I have the power, I want to control my children, I want to, play God. No, it's not like that at all. Why does God give us rules? To keep us safe when we're mature. For Christians, let me tell you something. Christians, we need the rules and laws of God. But we are not under the rules and laws of God. Does that make sense? When you're not a Christian, what the rules and laws of God are supposed to do is help you to realize how disobedient and sinful you are, how messed up you are, so that you're going to search for an answer. But when you're a Christian, the rules and laws of God, what it does is it helps you to mature and grow up. Let's say you don't listen and follow the rules of God, but you are genuinely saved. You're going to go to heaven when you die. I can't know if you're saved or not. Only you and God know. You're going to go to heaven. But the intimacy of your relationship with God will be destroyed if you're not obedient to God, if you're not listening to God. That's the difference. Your relationship. See, I was talking with my mom. I said, Mom, if I wasn't a pastor and I kind of went off on my own thing and I never went to the church and I didn't become a Christian and I just did my own thing, would you still love me even if you were disappointed in me? She goes, yeah. Would our relationship be as close? And she said, probably not. It's exactly the way it is with God. It's a little bit different in the sense that when you're saved, you're saved. Salvation has nothing to do with obeying the rules and laws of God in the Bible. Intimacy and relationship with God have everything to do with knowing Him and obeying His laws. I want you to understand that. So when I look at the cross, I see sin and the brokenness of the world and the need for God, and then I see God's incredibly generous, foolish offer of grace to people who don't deserve it. Just pours out. For me, I'm very limited and I'm very human. And so when I give something to someone, but they take it for granted, but they don't really, enjoy it or appreciate it, I just don't feel like giving to them anymore. If someone doesn't reciprocate relationship or love or kindness back to me, then eventually I start tuning out as well. We're all like that. But God, to your very dying day, is going to continue seeking after you, giving, pouring out, doing those things. You have to understand that. And that's why Jesus died on the cross. Because it should not make sense. Because Jesus is taking the punishment that you deserve. And to me, that is such an important thing, that it does not make sense that God loves us, that God is willing to die on the cross. It's a nonsensical thing, and we actually don't understand it, even as Christians. And we won't understand it even in heaven. It's going to take us all eternity to get more and more understanding of God's love and what He's done for us. But it has nothing to do with anything you can do. Jesus died on the cross, not because men put Him there, but because He kept Himself there for your sake and my sake. Doesn't make sense. And the final thing that the message of the cross gives me, and this is talking again about, the rules and laws, but it's the will of God and the obedience that Christ had to be willing to die on the cross. Like I said, it's his love that kept him on the cross. He could have come down at any moment. He could have called down angels. He could have refused to die on the cross. But he chose to die on the cross. He chose to. He decided to. He willingly died on the cross. And this is why it's such foolishness. It doesn't make sense to us. Couldn't God come up with another way? And I think God chose the cross because it is the most unimaginable thing and the last place that you would expect God to be. But here's the beauty of it. It means that no one is outside of the grace of God. No one is outside the grace of God. The worst criminal to the highest, wealthiest, most successful person, it doesn't matter what strata. Everyone is contained within it. By Jesus going to the lowest common denominator, he's including everyone. And Jesus does this. He says, I am going to obey God's will for me to die on the cross. To die on the cross means that he had to surrender his will to God and say, God, I will do whatever you want, even if it doesn't make sense, even if I don't want to. It's not something that Jesus wanted. One of my favorite stories from World War II, I may have shared this before, but it just amazes me because sometimes we feel like we want to be obedient to God, but we don't have the courage, we don't have that kind of mindset because we're so sidetracked by so many things. But we need to have that kind of obedience. And in having that kind of obedience, there's a freedom and a maturity that comes. Then you're no longer stressed by all the little things of this world. But in World War II, there was a 14th Army commander named General William Slim. And he was planning to drop Gurkhas. There were these, I don't know if you know them, but there was like this mountain people tribe of Gurkhas. And they were, during World War II, they didn't have any technology, any warp, but they were some of the craziest soldiers. That when they sent a team of that, they would take any objective and go and do things. And so in Burma, they wanted to drop the Gurkhas behind enemy lines via parachute. And when they told that battalion of Gurkhas, we're going to drop you behind enemy lines from airplanes at 700 feet, they were all kind of like, oh. They weren't very enthusiastic. Up until then, any mission that they were sent, they just went. Then later on, the Gurkha sergeant major came to this colonel, the one serving under William Slim, and the one that made this plan, and he said, kind of embarrassed, the troops, they don't want to be dropped at 700 feet. Can we be dropped at 300 feet instead? And then the colonel said, good God, man, this is just like kind of a movie. The parachutes won't open in time at 300 feet. And then the sergeant major said, oh, we'll be wearing parachutes then, will we? They're going to jump out 300 feet out of airplanes without a parachute. That's what they thought. They didn't even think about parachutes. 30 stories up. They thought, well, maybe a couple of us can survive. I have no idea what they were thinking. But you know what? That's exactly the way it is for us. We don't understand the whole picture sometimes. Sometimes our understanding of God is limited. We don't understand that there's a parachute. We don't understand all the details of the plan. But even reluctantly, are we willing to throw ourselves out? If you know God, you're willing to do so. And those are the three things that the message of the cross reminds me of. The brokenness of the world and how desperately it needs this crazy message of love of God. And finally, how Jesus obeyed even until death on the cross, and how I want to learn how to obey. Not because I have to, but because I want to. But because I'm so grateful. If you keep these things in mind, I think that'll remind you of why Jesus came into this world. Jesus didn't come into this world going, I'm not sure how I'm going to save these people, but we'll figure it out, we'll play it by ear. No, he knew. In 30 some odd years, he was going to die on the cross. And yet he still came into this world. I hope when you see a cross, when you think about Christmas, that you'll remember this. Let's be thankful for God sent his son into this world. Let's pray together.